Anne-Marie from brambleberry.com, and today I'm going to show you this classic seascape cold process soap. Now, the reason we were inspired to create this design in particular is because our new Island Oasis Collection just launched, and it is full of amazing things like this Coconut Paradise fragrance. What do I love about Coconut Paradise? Well, it smells just like suntan lotion, or pretty reminiscent. It's got some tonka beans in it. Of course, it has coconut. It's got some florals in it as well. It smells like summer at the beach. And best of all, you're not even gonna believe it, does not discolor. It also doesn't really accelerate trace, so it makes it perfect for cold process soap making. Now, as you can see, this soap has a lot going on in it, right? There's layers, there's drop swirls, lots going on, which means it is not for the beginner soaper. So if you are a beginner, welcome to the channel. You have found the right place. All the way back at the beginning of all of these cold process soap videos, there are 4 tutorials on how to make cold process soap for the first time. Or if you get any of my books, there is always a section on cold process soap making that is recipes and tips and tricks, so you can get a good 10 to 15 batches of basic beginner soap that under your belt before you attempt this particular advanced soap making recipe. Now, since you're watching this video and you're interested in the soap, you probably are a more advanced soap maker. You know, goggles are really important for soap making. Gloves are important. Long pants, closed-toed shoes, no children and pets in the area, especially for this one. This is gonna take a little bit longer. I went ahead and decided to use the Brambleberry Swirl mix for this. Now, funny story about the Swirl mix. I actually created that when I was about 18 or 19 years old, and it has been a best-selling favorite of mine to use ever since then. The reason for that is it stays really liquidy and really flowy during the entire soap making process without accelerating trace too much, which is kind of hard to do. So this is really at a very light emulsification. If I poured this into the soap mold right now, it would probably separate out, but since we're going to be working with so many layers, all I want is to split the soap now into containers. So all I'm doing is just really making sure this is lightly emulsified, that there's not like a big chunk of lye water down here or oils that haven't been mixed. And then I'm gonna do my split right now. So I'm just gonna do my first layer right now, which is the walnut shells. I'm just gonna go about 400 milliliters for the walnut shells. And these walnut shells are so fine grained, they are kind of perfect for looking like they're beach sand, which is fun. Now, I chose the walnut shells, of course, because it kind of looks like beach sand, but we do have another fun option in the Island Oasis Collection, which is coconut shells that are ground up. Now, they're slightly darker in color, not as uniform, so they'll be a little more scrubby, so it didn't quite fit my design, but that's another fun option. If you're thinking, oh, I like this design, but I kind of want to make it my own, and I don't want to do an exact replica, coconut shells will be a good option. And by the way, if you're watching this, I do love to see your exact replicas. I love it when they start popping up on Etsy. It makes me really excited to see people using designs that we created, and really makes me happy. This fragrance does act super well in cold process soap, but this process is kind of elongated, so I am being extra safe, and I'm just adding my fragrance to each layer just to make sure I have plenty of time to work with my entire batch. Now I'm just gonna get this to as thick of a trace as really I can while still pouring smoothly. I'm burping the stick blender because I don't wanna put in bubbles. Woo. I'm just gonna take this, pour it kind of low and slow over the bottom. And I'm getting a little bit of texture, which is nice. And I really see, now that I'm almost done with this, I really see all those beautiful walnut shells. They're gonna add just the right amount of scrubbiness to this. So now I'm gonna split about 400 off, and then I'm also gonna split 700 off over in this one, because this one's gonna be my white that I use for both layers of blue. And I'm also kind of keeping a real close eye on my soap over here to make sure it doesn't look grainy and it didn't need another stir. So when you're doing this, just take a quick peek, make sure it's not too grainy, doesn't need another stir. Got 700, 400, going to do my blue. So this is the ultramarine blue pigment. I love it because it really packs a punch in terms of colorant. It's just beautiful. It's non-bleeding. It doesn't fade. And it is considered one of those colorants that is nature identical or considered natural. So I also really like it for that reason. Just gonna add my fragrance now. And I'm also going to kind of go over here and check my walnut shells and see if they're ready to a little bit of texturing. I kind of want a beachy look, so I'm just going to do that before I add my titanium dioxide to that soap. So this is set up pretty nicely. And now I'm just going to try and just give it just a little bit of texture. I'm just adding kind of just a little bit of sand. This is sand. People have been walking in it. They've been frolicking. They're happy. And this will give each bar a little more interest and a little more life too, and not just be just a straight kind of edge. And this feels really good. It feels like it's set up really nicely. And now that that's done, I'll let that set up just a little bit more and I'll work on my white. So my white, I'm using titanium dioxide in. And titanium dioxide is also one of those colorants that's considered like a nature identical color. And I'm gonna just give this a really quick stir to get all the titanium dioxide up from the bottom because I notice it's really settled. It is pretty heavy. And of course I've pre-mixed my colorants to make sure that there are no clumps in them. And I just mix them with a lightweight oil and that helps them disperse a little bit too, which is nice. I'm using a full 2 tablespoons of dispersed titanium dioxide. And I'm gonna add my fragrance in and then give this a quick stir with a stick blender. And let's see, I'm gonna do this one. Give it a quick stir with a stick blender. Make sure everything is mixed in fully. And then I'm just going to, because I don't want to wash my stick blender, shake this off really well, kind of wipe it down a little bit on this paper towel. And then I'm going to use the same stick blender just to get all that blue mixed in perfectly and evenly. Then I'm going to pop the stick blender head off, put my mold back up, and pour a very thin kind of layer of blue right now to cover kind of my sand. And you'll notice that my blue is really gorgeously free flowing. That is just a testament to the fragrance and also of course the Swirl quick mix. It just is such a well-behaved blend of oils. I'm just gonna get everything in there. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop a little bit of white into here. So there's about 700 milliliters in here, but we need it for layer 2, layer 3, and layer 4. So just a little bit goes a long way. So just kind of drop, swirl it in, done and done. Just gave that a really quick stir, nothing major. And now I'm just gonna drizzle this in. And it is supposed to be a gorgeous drop swirl ocean scene. So it's more art than it is science. So just kind of get that in there. And then I'm gonna wait just a little bit and start, while this hardens up, and start kind of working on my next color, which is that light blue. So I think you're sensing a theme here. It's gonna be about 400 milliliters of soap. And I am just going to make sure that I didn't take too much because now we're getting down to that last and final layer. And then this is gonna have 2 teaspoons of mermaid blue mica, which has the most glorious shimmer. I love how it looks. So now I'm just gonna hand stir this because it's a mica, so it doesn't need the kind of intense, get all the clumps out and disperse them all stirring that the oxides do. And honestly, I'm loving my blue layer. It's perfect, but there's not enough texture. So I'm gonna just texturize it just a little bit before I pour my light blue layer in. Now do you see why I'm adding the fragrance per layer? Because I just want enough time to just work on getting this absolutely the most wave-like and beachy. So same thing as the last one. I'm just gonna pour a little bit of this blue just to kind of cover it. It's okay if you get breakthrough. That's totally fine. That's exactly how clouds do look. You can pour low and slow. You can always pour over a spatula if you're concerned about breakthrough. So keep that in mind. You can do a flooding technique if you're worried about the breakthrough. In this case, again, it's all art. There's not a lot of science to creating this design. It's what you do and what your preferences works beautifully. So now that I have kind of that layer of blue really delineated in here, now I'm going to do just a little bit of that white drop swirl. We've gotten a little bit thicker, and that's the titanium dioxide that gets a little bit thick on you. So a little bit of whisk and we're good. And now just going to pour low and slow with this white, and the white is just going to go in like the floofy clouds. All right. Now, interestingly enough, I know that since this is so thick, what's going to end up happening is it's going to drop into my floofy clouds, so I don't really need to worry about texture on my kind of aquamarine colored layer. So add a little bit of fragrance. I'm going to just pour it all in there because I did not eyeball well enough. And let's see if this thins out my trace just a little, makes it a little easier to work with. It did. I love it when a fragrance thins out trace just a little. So nice. So this is really beautiful and fluid. So now I have choices. I can either try to limit breakthrough bleeding by doing some flooding here, right? So pour this and then let this disperse. Or I can do some breakthrough bleeding on purpose and see if that gets rid of kind of how I didn't use the kind of texturizing earlier. So that'll be really fun to see how those two turn out differently or not. So now all of my white's done, and I just have one final scene, which is my sunset scene. So that's that pink and pink layer. So here I'm just using the last of my soap, and I'm just doing 2 teaspoons. This is not a teaspoon, this is a half teaspoon. 2 teaspoons of this hot pink mica, and it's gonna disperse in really nicely because it's a mica, and love how thin this trace is. And it's so easy to work with. And I'm just kind of working to cover this, and then I'm going to do my lighter pink on the top. And I'm just going to go down really quick here. All right, so that's almost perfectly covered. Oh, it's gorgeous. And now I'm just going to add titanium dioxide to get this to a lighter pink so I can top off my sunset look. I'm going to go with a full tablespoon of this, and I'm going to stick blend it in. It's going to cause a little bit of air bubbles, but with titanium dioxide, I really do see streaking if I don't try and stick blend it in, which is kind of annoying because again, I'm going to get some air bubbles, but I think it's worth it. Those are some bubbles. So now I'm going to shake. I'm just agitating because I'm getting the bubbles to come to the surface. So that way they don't stick in my soap. Fun fact, I have a new dog and I named her Bubbles because I love soap. So it is a very big adventure at our house right now. So now we're just going to kind of cover this as much as we can. I'm going to start in the middle and get wider from there and let it go out like that, almost as though it is a sun that is really kind of sticking out. And then I'm also going to tamp this down just a little and then work on filling in some of my side gaps now because there's a lot of soap left in this container. It's a really, really big container, so it hides a lot of soap. And now I'm just kind of going down on the sides where there's less of the light pink and just filling that in. And then now it's a waiting game. Now I just gotta wait. Gotta wait just a little bit. It's been just about like 3 to 5 minutes. I'm just gonna kind of go through and just give this a really quick texture and just sort of make it look fun and interesting on top. Now that this is all done, I'm just gonna spray it with some 99% rubbing alcohol, and the 99% rubbing alcohol helps to inhibit the salts that form that make soda ash. Then I'm gonna toss this on a little heating pad, see if it wants to go through gel phase, which will brighten up the colors and give it a slightly more shiny, translucent look, and then it'll be ready to cut in 3 to 5 days. So this batch was made like 3 or 4 days ago. There is sodium lactate in it, so that does help with unmolding. I'm just gonna unmold it. And actually, what's funny is there's this slider, so you could just slide things out, or you can just kind of pull because of the silicone liner. So I'm just gonna go pull and not use the 5-pound bottom slider, but the 5-pound bottom slider is really great when you need to just kind of drop the entire loaf out. I love the silicone liners because the soap always comes out so smooth and shiny. So now I'm just gonna gently peel away on the sides. Don't wanna rush this process because since there's been not very much airflow between the soap and the silicone liner, what ends up happening sometimes is it's a little sticky and it can tear. So gently pulling away from the sides. And now I have this textured top, so I can't really just plop it. So I'm just gonna gently look for some air pockets forming. So right here I can see the air pockets forming, so I know that this is coming out really well. Whoa, okay, I totally ended up dropping that right on the surface. Let's gently turn it over and see how much damage I did. Ha, not a lot of damage. So right there, gorgeous. Love how this is looking already. That little top layer of light pink looks like it's got some good contrast, and the walnut shells are beautiful. Walnut shells are on the bottom, so I don't have to worry about them causing drag marks. If they're on the top, I'd have to really worry about them causing drag marks down my soap. So now I'm just going to freehand this. And this little end piece doesn't have perfect coloring, so I'm actually just gonna cut a little bit of the end off first. So that way each bar has kind of a more perfect look to it. I'm noticing my titanium dioxide is just coming down a little bit in white streaks. Now what's interesting, just a tip, is if that happens to you ever, you can always use rubbing alcohol to wipe off the titanium dioxide or oxide streaks from your soap, or even just a little bit of cold water, and that cleans up the entire look. So this is gorgeous. I love the contrast for those kind of pink fluffy clouds, and the blue really, really reminds me of moving water. This is such a classic bar of ocean soap. I mean, there's so many awesome possibilities, everything from embeds to kind of varying up your layers to really making a true sunset look. The Island Oasis Collection lends itself to so much creativity. And speaking of creativity, when you make your soaps and you post them online, please hashtag Bramble on. We would love to see what you create. It's so inspiring, and I can't wait to see what the Island Oasis Collection sparks in you. Thanks so much for watching today's episode. If you liked this episode, give it a thumbs up below. And of course, if you'd like to be notified, and of course you want to be notified every single time a new video comes out on our channel, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, happy soaping.
Come here, Bubbles. Yeah. Good girl. Come here, Bubbles.
I'm moving by myself.
Yeah, go Bubbles. You're so good.
I'm on the hill.
Good Bubbles.